The gentleman from New York, Mr. Meeks, who is also the chair of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Ray, thank you for your testimony here today. And, if you've been a member of Congress as long as I have been, it just seems eerily it was you that had to take over Enron when I was sitting here at that particular time. And we were looking at that as being one of the biggest scandals that we've ever seen. And now, I believe in your testimony today, you said this may be even bigger, which is really concerning to me. Particularly since, I do believe that blockchain technologies have a role in fostering financial inclusion that facilitates cross-border transactions. But what we didn't have and what we don't have are the real safeguards against misuse by bad actors. As a result of that, I know I've been intricately involved with New York State. And New York State was one of the first nations to create a virtual currency license and supervisory framework. And so in your testimony, you were very frank about the total lack of internal controls in FTX and critical of their governance structure. So I guess my first question to you is, in your estimation, how much did the lack of a board of directors attribute to the failure of FTX? And do you believe there would have been an opportunity to change course if this defunct structure were identified early on?
Yes, I do. I think the lack of an independent board was a critical aspect of the failure.
And also in New York State, there are capitalization requirements for licensee holders to have highly liquid capital to ensure that financial integrity and to protect against outside shocks. Now, in this instance, how would a capital requirement have changed the outcome of the FTX failure?
Yeah, I'm not a regulatory expert. I mean, what I've set forth in my testimony is that I think it's important for customer accounts to be segregated and for there to be transparency in what people can visualize in their account, and they have some strict rules relative to using customer assets. That's the extent of my views about the regulatory scheme. I defer to others who are obviously more experienced on the regulatory side.
That's one of the issues that we're trying to deal here, is how do we get the appropriate and the proper regulation so that we can make sure that individuals are protected. For example, do you know and to what extent were U.S. persons trading on the FTX exchange? And do you believe that the controls were adequate in restricting access for U.S. persons? Because, FTX.com was listed in the Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And despite it being publicly reported that the U.S. subsidiary was a stronger position than its parent because of the narrowed offerings and oversights, there still seemed to be this direction toward U.S. persons. So what do you think? Do you think that there should be, or the restricting access for U.S. persons or the controls were adequate?
Well, certainly there was a limited number of people that invested on the .com, which was not the intended use of that exchange. How that happened, obviously, we'll have to investigate, and where the breakdown was, internally in our controls that would have allowed that to happen.
So I'd like, at some point, I know you're not a regulatory expert, but to have conversation with you about looking at some of the rules and the regulations that we put in place in the state of New York, because the debate that we have here at times is ceilings and floors and what would be appropriate to make sure that people are protected. You've already stated that FTX's lack of internal controls is unlike anything that you've ever seen in your career, and obviously has had a devastating impact on people who have trusted FTX with their savings and investments. I also chair the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and I'm also concerned that these internal failures could have led to sanction evasion and illegal transactions on FTX's platform at a time when sanctions compliance is critical for supporting countries like Ukraine and slowing down Putin's war machine. Have you and your team investigated these issues since taking the helm at FTX about anyone trying to avoid sanctions?
Yeah, we're certainly investigating all the aspects of the failure, and as the coming weeks, we'll learn more, and I think we'll certainly be willing to, work with the committee to understand really what happened and share with you to the extent possible.
Gentleman's
very
time has
much.
expired.